Now, growing up, I always felt like Calcio was the home of true football. It was the home of iconic stars, iconic teams, iconic performances, iconic achievements. It was the home of football royalty. The amount of players that I saw growing up in this area, especially in the late 90s and the early 2000s, it made me love football. It made me love Italian football. It made me love Italian teams across the park. And if somebody was to turn around and say to you, which teams dominate Calcio? Which teams back then were on top of their game, feared across the world? You had one team, 36 Scudettos in Juventus. A team that monopolised the league, 9 Serie A's in a row from 2011 to 2020. Stars, big names, Ballon d'Or winners, goals, defensive animals. He had everything. Then you had the rivals, Milan, 7-time Champions League winners. A team that's won 19 Scudettos. Milan was literally at times the home to stars. Stars that teams across the world always wanted, from your Kakas to your Seedorfs to your Shevchenkos. David Beckham was there, Robinho, Ronaldinho. Listen, Calcio is the home of true football. So why not make an all-time combined 11 of, let's just put it out there, I feel like everybody needs to remember, I said this at the beginning of the video, all-time 11 Juventus, Milan of players that I saw, okay? We're not putting in players like Platini. I wasn't alive. I wasn't born. I never had the honour to watch Platini. So these are players that I have seen. And I'll tell you guys one thing for free. It's not structured in the slightest, but it's a team of icons. Now, the first dilemma that I had was the formation. Because, listen, if I wanted to include all of the players that I loved, I would have probably gone for a 4-1-2-1-2 diamond. But that meant some key wingers, some key wide players would have been left out. I've just gone the coward way out, and I've gone 4-4-2. So let's start off with the goalkeeper. Now, for me, I feel like this was the one position where I didn't struggle the most with. Gigi Buffon. Listen, the best goalkeeper I've ever seen. A man, the thing I just loved about him more than anything was leadership. Like, don't get me wrong, amazing goalkeeper, amazing shot stopper. One of the best commanders of his box that I've ever seen. Even when he went to PSG and everybody felt like he was past it. A leader of men, a goalkeeper that breeds confidence. But I just love the fact that even when Juventus were in the trenches and they got relegated to Serie B, he was one of the dudes that said, I am sticking with the old lady. I am sticking to this team. And I am taking them back to where they belong. For me, the best goalkeeper I've ever seen. He brought everything to the table on and off the pitch. A true gentleman, a true character, a true captain. So in goal, I go Buffon. Now at right back, this one, I think this one was relatively easy as well. Mainly because some of the other players in competition, I never got the chance to see them. I go Cafu. Only because I remember watching Calcio growing up. And when Cafu made the move from Roma, now don't get me wrong, he tore the place apart at Roma. But when he made the move, everybody looked at him and told themselves, Cafu, 33 years of age. The way he liked to play the game, like so dynamic, constantly on the overlap, always offering something in the final third. Surely the battery must wear off by the time you hit 33 years of age. And when he went to Milan, a lot of the Rossoneri fans looked at him and said, are we signing a player that's beyond it, that's past it, a player that hasn't got much to offer? And wow, I feel like Cafu's performances in that Milan top, for me, it revolutionized the right back row. He brought everything to the table, things that you never ever even expected from a fullback that can score, a fullback that can get assists, a fullback that was amazing defensively, but a fullback that was amazing offensively. The technical ability, the flair. He was a willing runner. He was a player that put his body on the line. And I feel like Calcio growing up, it was full of leaders. Players of the right mentality, of the right character. Players with the hunger to succeed. Players that even in their mid-30s were just getting better with age. So for me, at right back, I put Cafu. Right next to him, I put Canavaro. Now, for me, Canavaro, I remember watching this 2006 campaign. And for me, I was like, this is the best centre-back on the planet. This is a centre-back that's won the Ballon d'Or. This is a centre-back that guided Italy to the World Cup. But Cannavaro, I just feel like the thing I loved about him more than anything, and I feel like growing up, the aggressive centre half always stands out to you more when you're young. When you get older, you begin to appreciate a centre half that's more tactical, one that's more calculated. Cannavaro for me was like an aggressive pit bull. He didn't care how big you were, how strong you were. He was getting stuck in. He was winning his duels. For a dude that was relatively short, he was good in the air. He had a good leap, the ball playing. Like, this is a dude that won it all. This is a dude that cemented his name across teams, across the world. For me, Canavaro, he is an icon of Calcio. He is an icon of Juventus. He was a top player technically. He was a top player physically. Once again, mentality. He had the fight. He just understood what it meant to go out there on the pitch and deliver the goods. So for me, I got Canavaro at centre back. Next in line, Nesta. I genuinely feel like Nesta is one of those players. Now, this might sound crazy. Nesta is one of those players that I feel like he always gets forgotten when speaking about iconic defenders at Milan. Why? Because Maldini was there. Maldini is the greatest defender of all time. And I feel like he was always in Maldini's shadow. Nesta was elite. And I feel like sometimes when I'm social media and I see what the younger generation have to say about Nesta, it shocks me. It bewilders me. Like, it baffles me, because I'm sat thinking, you guys didn't have the pleasure to watch Nesta. Your dad, your granddad, your uncle, they never told you about Nesta. Nesta, for me, he wasn't aggressive, but he was calculated. He was so calculated. Like, he is literally the prime embodiment of being in the right place at the right time. Technically, he was so gifted. Like, this is a dude that tore the place apart at Lazio. Got the move to Milan, and I feel like he just grew. He just grew 50 levels at Milan. And so many people turn around and say, oh, like, he had the luxury of having Dida in goal, of having Cafu, of having Maldini besides him. But this was a dude that was a leader. This was a dude that at times was outperforming them. Nesta, for me, is a player that I only began to appreciate more and more as I got older. Because like I said to you guys, as a young fan of football, I always loved the aggressive players. Growing older, watching Nesta, just knowing no matter who he came up against, whether he was 2v1 outnumbered, 3v1 outnumbered, he was always 4-5 steps ahead of everybody. And he knew what to do from his in-game experience, from his knowledge, from his understanding of the game. I feel like his anticipation is something that never ever gets spoken about when speaking about Nesta. The anticipation, the ability to smell fire, to sniff it out, but then on top of everything, to put it out. Nesta, for me, that's a guaranteed spot on the left side. And then the left back, just keep it short and sweet. The best defender of all time. I feel like nobody ever grew up wanting to be a defender until they watched Maldini. Growing up, being a football fan, you want to be the striker. You want to be the guy that scores the goals. You want to be the tricky winger, the dynamic one. You want to be a midfielder because of those long-range passes. When you watch Maldini, you actually want to become a guy that puts his body on the line. You want to be a guy that makes those last-minute crunching slide tackles. Maldini, for me, will always be the best defender of all time, from his versatility, from the fact that Maldini was a right-footed player. I just didn't know how to word it. Maldini was a right-footed player that played left-back. And from his own ability, from his practice makes perfect, he became naturally left-footed. Like, what does that tell you? A player where his weak foot is as strong as his strong foot. He was amazing. And I feel like the longevity, the fact that he was even in his 38, 39, 40, pocketing the next big thing in the Champions League, pocketing players that were full of physicality, full of trickery. Similar to Nesta, anticipation, reading of the game, being in the right place at the right time. The iconic quote, if I've gone to ground, it means I've made a mistake. Maldini, he always put out the fire even before you started rubbing the chalk, even before you started putting the gasoline. He always put it out. Maldini, for me, one of the best. He's a player that even till now, I watch his highlights. I go back and watch some of his games. A leader, an icon, the face of Calcio. Now this is when structure goes out of the window. 4-4-2. In midfield, I already had one player that was guaranteed. And for me, he is one of my favourite ever midfielders. I have him in table one. Table one for midfielders. Like, I have him along the side of players like Iniesta, Xavi, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric. And that is Andrea Pirlo. Pirlo, for me, if you wanted to understand football, if you wanted to see the elegance of a game of football in midfield, just watch Pirlo. The thing I loved about him was the fact that Physically, he was never gifted. From when he was at Inter, from Milan, Juve, he was never ever a player that you looked at and told yourself, physically he's strong, he's got the strength, he's got the running power. No, he was always a player that looked timid, he looked weak. But the thing that was ridiculous about him, and I feel like it's a common theme amongst Italian footballers, their reading of the game, the IQ, you couldn't compare it with anybody across the world. For me, Pirlo, the story, what he contributed to Serie A, what he contributed to the Italian national team, the fact that he left Milan where everybody looked at him and said, you're finished, like you're past it, goes as a free agent to Juventus, and then what he done in that Juve shirt with Marchisio, Vidal, Paul Pogba, I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe it. Like, even with the Italian national team at such an old age, I was just watching him and I was like, it's crazy how the oldest player on the pitch is still the best player amongst the next big thing, the up-and-coming stars, the players that are currently dominating some of the top 5 leagues across the world. Andrea Pirlo. It was everything. I'll be honest with you guys. He was the complete midfielder, because even defensively, I feel like defensively, he never ever gets the respect that he truly deserves. Always in the right place at the right time. When he got stuck in, he tended to win his duels. But I felt like it was the passing, it was the playmaking, it was the ability to score from outside the box, left foot, right foot. He was an icon. He was a player that was a joy to play with. He was truly one of those players. If you were an attacker and you knew you had Andrea Pirlo behind you, you knew I was getting opportunities. And I wasn't going to get one opportunity. I'll probably get 2, 3, 4, 5 in one half of football. When he got onto the ball, his foot was like a magic wand. I actually love Andrea Pirlo, and it kills me because he is one of the players that is so disrespected. And I truly believe it's because not many people grew up watching Calcio, not many people grew up watching the Serie A. People look at him and say, yeah, he's table 2, yeah, he's table 3. Listen, this dude is a staple. This dude is cemented on table 1. For me, one of the best midfielders I've ever seen. Now, next to him, I've had to put Kaká. Listen, if I was to build my ideal team and I was going to go for like structure and making sure my team can defend transitions, there is no way in hell I would put Kaká and Pirlo as a 2-man midfield. I'd probably go for somebody like Gattuso. I really wanted to put Seedorf. Like, Seedorf for me is one of my favourite players. But I was just like, yo, I can't leave Kaká. I just can't. Like, what he done in that Milan shirt coming from Sao Paulo, I couldn't believe it. Like, what he done to Manchester United, what he done in the Serie A, the fact that he's went on to win a Ballon d'Or. Kaká, for me, crazy. I just feel like when you look at his career, the reason why he doesn't truly get the respect that he deserves from people that didn't watch the Serie A is because of how his stint went in Real Madrid. The fact that he went there, he had back-to-back big injuries. He never ever really lived up to the hype. He never ever really lived up to the price tag. The fact that he was signed the same summer as Cristiano Ronaldo. Kaká in the black and red Milan shirt, he was the prime embodiment of running circles around players. That's the best way I could ever describe him. Running circles around players. This dude was 6 foot plus, but he had the running power. He had that low center of gravity of wingers that were 5'6", 5'5". When he picked up the ball, the way he would just glide past players. But the thing I loved about it the most is he would glide past you, but still have the IQ to know where his teammates were. Still have the IQ to get that half angle, have a shot on goal. He was prolific in front of goal. He was prolific in his playmaking. He was, as much as he wasn't a central midfielder, and that's why I said structure goes out of the window when I'm making this team. He played in and around Shevchenko, but it was a dynamic duo. It was a duo that complemented one another. Hands down, it was one of the worst duos to come up against because it was strong, it was technical, it was hungry, it had an elite mentality, and on top of everything, it was players that knew how to put the ball into the back of the net in a variety of different ways. And it's not surprised. Both of them have got Ballon d'Ors. So my 2-man midfield is Kaká and Andrea Pirlo. Now I feel like this is where it got difficult, challenging, and for me, not the most impressive. I feel like the Serie A, in terms of wingers, they weren't really gifted with some of the best of wingers. One of them is a guarantee. But I'll be honest with you guys, when it came to the right-hand side, I was actually struggling. Short and sweet. Right-hand side, I've got the player that made the step from Hellas Verona into Juventus, in Camoranesi. Camoranesi, for me, was a quality player for Juventus. I feel like he was a fan favourite. The fact that he literally just left it all on the pitch. But I'm not going to sit down here and lie to you guys and tell you guys Camoranesi was like a baller and he was amazing and he was tearing people apart. No, I definitely would not say that. He was an amazing footballer. He was a great player. But I feel like at the end of this video, when you look at all of the 11 players on the pitch, we can all agree that Camoranesi would be ranked 11th. Yeah. But for me, I just felt like from looking at these two teams, the teams that I watched, Milan, Juventus on the right hand side, I can't really think of anybody that outperformed Camoranesi. And maybe, just maybe, I have forgotten somebody and I do apologise. But for me, on the right wing, I go Camoranesi. I feel like he was dynamic. He was a player that just knew how to beat his man and knew how to put the ball into the box and find a teammate. Now, like I said, he was a great player, but I'm not going to sit here and make him sound like the next big thing, or if he was the next big thing. So right wing, I go Camoranesi. On the left wing, was a player that was the next big thing, and no surprise. How many Ballon d'Or winners are in this team? Pavel Nedved. The step from Lazio to Juventus. And I feel like so many times people forget, he actually won the Serie A with Lazio. Like, he actually put them on his back, delivered the goods. And then this was where it was crazy. He comes to Juventus after they had just sold Zinedine Zidane to Real Madrid. Do you know how big those boots are to fill? Like, imagine being a Juventus fan. You've got Zinedine Zidane. You've seen what he's done. And then you replace him. Fair enough. A Serie A winner and Pavel Nedved. But I'll be real. Even you're sat thinking, yo, we have downgraded. But Pavel Nedved, for me, is a Juventus legend. And I genuinely feel like the thing that made him so special was his running power. When he picked up that ball, you just couldn't get it off him. But the thing that I love about it the most is players that can travel at such a high speed, but still scan the pitch, but still put in that deadly cross, but still cut in and have a shot on goal. This is a dude that won the Ballon d'Or. This is a dude that, even when I personally really have a soft spot for Juventus players that stuck with Juventus when they got relegated to Serie B, because it shows they don't care about the glory, they don't care about the money. When Juventus got relegated, teams across the world were trying to cash in on these Juventus players. Some left, some stayed. Pavel Nedved was one of the players that stayed, and he helped guide his team back into the Serie A, back to winning Scudettos. Pavel Nedved, for me, was an icon. He was an amazing player. Everything about him, from the technical ability to the physicality to the way he carried himself, a Juventus legend. So he's got the left-hand side for me. And finally, the two-man in attack. I feel like this was probably the easiest for me, because they are two of my favourite players. And I genuinely sat down and said, listen, who can really compete with them? Position number 1, Ballon d'Or winner, Andrei Shevchenko. Shevchenko was an absolute joke to watch. And I genuinely feel like Shevchenko going to Chelsea and not really living up to the hype that he done in a Milan top, it really tarnished his name, in a sense, to people that didn't watch him at Milan. This dude was a demon. Like, this was a dude. How do I explain him to anybody that never got to see Shevchenko? Like, he was just a dude that knew how to score. And he wasn't one of those fox in the box where he relied strictly on service. No. Give him the ball with 30, 40 yards out. He will find a way to dribble past two players and put it into the top corner. You know what? On days, he might just get the ball from 40 yards and put it into the top corner. He was a complete striker. He scored penalties. He scored free kicks. He scored from out wide. He scored from inside the box. He scored from dribbling. He won a Ballon d'Or. I never got to watch him at Dynamo Kiev, but just from reading about what he done at Dynamo Kiev in the 1990s, it was impressive. He nearly took them to a Champions League final, bro. And let's be real, when you think Dynamo Kiev and you think Champions League, you automatically think of group stage knockout. Listen, what he's done in football as a whole, it's impressive. His first two seasons in a Milan shirt, having to make the step to Milan to adapt to the Serie A, how defensive it is. This dude in his first 2 seasons in the Milan top scored 24 goals back to back. He was an elite goal scorer. He was an elite finisher. He genuinely was a player that brought so much out of his teammates. And in return, when they fed him the ball, he put the ball into the back of the net. And finally, the last spot is for Alessandro Del Piero. Now, he is another player. Actually, no. Del Piero, for me, he gets the respect he truly deserves from fans across the world. He's genuinely one player that I don't hear like any crazy opinions on. He was literally the first dude to step up and say, I am not leaving the old lady when they got relegated. And he was like, I'm taking them back to where they belong. But this dude, similar to Shevchenko, maybe he wasn't gifted as much as Shevchenko physically in terms of build, he was relatively a bit smaller, but he had that low center of gravity, which when he got the ball, it stuck to him like glue. Like, you genuinely couldn't get it. He would just maneuver himself in and out of players. The goals that he used to score were iconic. Like, I remember watching Del Piero, Channel 5. If you're in the UK, you'd remember. Calcio was on Channel 5. The goals this dude used to score were a joke. And I'm telling you guys, free kicks, penalties, from the left-hand side, from the right-hand side, in the box. Give him the ball to dribble past 3-4 players. He can do it. The dude scored headers for a dude that wasn't even that tall. He literally represented everything for Juventus. Like, every Juventus fan loves him. I feel like every Italian fan loves him. I feel like every Calcio fan appreciates what he brought to the Serie A, what he brought to Juventus, what he brought to football as a whole. And so many people say, like, he probably is the best talent to walk out of Calcio. And I genuinely feel like that's not really a hot take, because he genuinely was an icon of Italian football. What he offered to the team on an international level. Juventus, fair enough, he left towards the end. I believe he went to Sydney in Australia. But as a player, he was an icon. He literally brought everything to the table that you wanted in an attacker. And the funny thing is, when you look at my team, the 11 players, I feel like the one thing all of them have in common that you probably would turn around and say a lot of the Serie A teams lack as of now is mentality. And it's crazy because I've covered so many Italian teams this season and I've always come out and said, listen, Juventus, there's not much mentality in that squad. Milan, not much mentality, not much fight. All of those 11 players, the one thing that they had in common, the one thing that stood out more than their technical ability, more than their physicality, more than their tactical acumen, was the fact that mentality. They knew what it meant to represent Milan. They knew what it meant to represent Juventus. They went out there, they left it all on the pitch. They delivered the goods. They didn't shy away from the pressure. If anything, it fueled them. The pressure was like petrol to them. It was like diesel to them. It just made them grow. And listen, as much as it pains me to say, that's probably one of the reasons why Calcio, Serie A, is not what it once was. Back then, it was a league of men. It was a league of winners. It was a league of high pressure moments, high pressure players. Nowadays, it's really coming across like a mercenaries league where players just come there for the money. Players just come there to get Juve, Milan on their resume and try and move elsewhere. Back then, it was the home of football, and that's what made me love it growing up. But listen, this is my team, the 4-4-2. Who will be the coach of this? Most likely HAJJ. He's a guy that won 19 Champions Leagues. He's a guy that won 25 Scudettos. He's a guy that won 82 Super Copas. And he's a guy that won the Club World Cup, if I remember correctly, 24 times. But listen, if you're new, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to let me know of your team in the comments. And I will catch you guys on another one.